Hey there, bestie. I'm Lori Emi, your What to Read Next podcast host. Join me as we dive into exciting new reads that'll have you reaching for your TBR pile in no time. From group and mysteries to spicy romances, we'll explore it all and help you find your next favorite book. So grab a cup of tea, cozy it up, and let's discover some amazing reads together. Hello, welcome to the What to Read Next podcast. I am so happy to have you back, and today we're chatting some millennial audiobooks that you should pick up. So, best way I can describe this is if you're a millennial or from elder millennial to older Gen Z, you probably will relate to some of these books. And so I have a list of about like 7 or 8 books to share with you that are relatable to our millennial experience. These are books from TV shows, movies, to books about like just kind of like reverent conversations about our experience growing up, our childhood growing up, as well as some of the girl bossing that we saw in the 2012s. So let's just get to the list. The first one is Glossy by Maritza Meltzer. It's ambition, beauty, and inside story of Emily Weiss Glossier. So I want to preface this. I am not like a makeup girly, so I have like no idea what different makeup brands or any specific things. So I'm not familiar with Glossier as a brand. However, I'm familiar with Emily Weiss because she is super intern Emily from The Hills. In the aughts, I was a huge MTV fan. I watched Laguna Beach, I watched The Real World, I watched Road Rules, I watched The Challenge early seasons. And I knew Emily as Super Emily from The Hills. She's the intern from New York that comes to help out Lauren and Whitney. And she's like overly ambitious and just go-getter. So we saw her from those scenes in The Hills. And I was like, I want to know more about her life, like more about what she does. So we hear basically the story of Emily Weiss, like story from her startup as an intern and working in the different magazines and aughts, which was like the dream. I wanted to work in a magazine, the aughts. I did not. I had a different fun job in my early 20s, but that was a dream. I wanted to be like press releases and different things and having a beauty closet. And so we get the experience from that. And then we see how she started her blog and then moves on to this direct to consumer. This is the Girl Boss 2012 era. Emily's one of them. But I remember very clearly that era. It was like, we wanted to be millionaires. We want to have hobbies. We want to have jobs. We want to monetize everything that we did. And that was it. That was the era. I had a blog at the time. I had the idea. I had friends, connections. I used to review back in the day fitness classes because I was passionate about healthy living. I had an eating disorder, really, when it comes down to it. But, we take it where you want. So I used to go take classes in New York City and review them on my blog. And I was like, this class is great, or this class is not great. And I learned how to speak up. I did get a fun story about the fitness classes. I took a Soul Cycle class thinking, okay, this will be fine. Set in the front rows and then I'll figure out where it is. Oh, that was a bad decision. I hated Soul Cycle. I never taken a spin class in my life. And I was like, what the fuck did I just get into? So fast forward to a year later, one of my favorite instructors started teaching spin classes in New York City. And I started taking them with my friend. And I was like, oh, like I needed to figure out how to use it. So I took a class with her. She actually taught me how to get on the bike, how to unclip my feet, and what the process, what the movement is. And so I go into like basically a few months later, I walk by a Soul Cycle near where I work in Tribeca. And I was like, hey, I took a class a year ago, but I did not understand what was going on. It was my first class. I did not understand the logistics of it. And the people at Soul Cycle were really gracious. They're like, we'll offer you a free class, like just to come back, just to try it out. So I was like, okay. So I tell my friend, Veronica, I was like, hey, I'm gonna take a Soul Cycle class. She's like my fitness buddy. She's like, you want to take it with me? She's like, sure. Like, so we go, and we've been taking Swerve, which is a different spin studio in New York City. It no longer exists, rest in peace, but it was a great studio. So we've been taking Swerve. So we're like, okay, we know what is going on and all these different things. And I've been taking Flywheel, which is another spin studio in New York City that I loved and no longer exists. But I was like, okay, so we're going to go to Soul Cycle and we're just going to do it. And it was chaotic as a mess. So we chose the studio in Nomad. I think, no, was it Nomad? No, it was Union Square. We chose the studio in Union Square, and it was chaotic as fast. Like, we had no idea where the fuck we're going, what is going on. So we go into the studio, and we just sat there, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, I should know. They should tell me where the lockers are. They should have like a better guest experience. So I made a complaint to SoulCycle. I was I messaged the manager. I was like, I understand like the stuff, but a little bit like front desk should be like a little nicer and stuff. So they offered me a third class, and I was like, okay, we're gonna try it again. I still hated SoulCycle. I knew I didn't like it, but a third class will be the charm. And I finally come to the conclusion that I do not like SoulCycle. I do like spin. I used to take classes in Peloton in the studio in Chelsea. That's also where I was in 2016, 2015. So I used to love going to a spin class. I haven't spin anymore. I do have a Peloton bike, but I have not done. And so that's a tangent about my fitness cycle stuff. But going back to Glossy is it's a great book about like Glossier, like what it was like to be in the 2012s in the beauty industry. There's no gotcha moment. She does have like a positive light to Emily. So if you're looking for the gotcha moment, you're not going to find it. I think those are the mixed reviews. They're like, we're expecting more tea, more drama, and there wasn't. But it was just one companion. So if you're looking to get to know about Glossier, this book is for you. All right. So now let's go to the next book, which is One in a Millennial by Kate Kennedy. This is a memoir, a book of essays where Kate shares her experience of being a millennial, essentially the quintessential millennial. So if you're not familiar with Kate Kennedy, she has a podcast called Be There in 5. It's a long form content podcast where she talks for a couple hours. Most of them are solo shows. She does have some guests. She had Emily Henry as a guest. So if you're looking to hear from Emily Henry, she has an episode for that, and I'll link into the show notes. But it's a pretty long form content, conversations about what it's like to be a millennial in this era or going back in our childhood. So this book is basically, I've been a longtime follower of Kate on Instagram. I don't listen to podcasts for my own issues. And this is just, it's hard for me to listen to podcasts, the long form podcasts, because I need to get a gold star. So I need to have a purpose behind things are. And I'm very gold star driven. So if I'm going to spend 2 hours listening to a podcast, I would likely just read the book. In my head, I'm like, well, it's better if I read the book because then I could create content and I can do this. It's obviously, it's my own anxiety and my own my own way of, justifying work or justifying how I spend my time. Like, I think this is very millennial as we're talking about the idea of productivity. How do you get the most productive point? So obviously I do enjoy Kate's content. I loved her book. I loved her content that she shares on Instagram. And so if you're looking for a podcast to listen, Be There in 5 is one of them. But if you're just not ready for listening to a whole backlog of long episodes, then you can actually read the book, One in a Millennial. So One in a Millennial starts with Kate's childhood. She was born in she's in the late 80s. So she's a bit younger than me. I was in 81. And she talks about her experience growing up from purity culture, Barbies, the rise of Instagram, not rise of Instagram, the rise of AIM, Instant Messenger, going to college in the aughts, and being a millennial. She's the quintessential millennial person, from the statement necklace to the chevron to girl bossing. And we even touch upon school shootings, which is it's unfortunately part of our experience, part of who we are. I love that her first corporate job was in New York City, because I had that job in New York City, the first job when you're 20s and you're broke and you're trying to make it sense. And you have to wear cute clothes and do all the different things. Obviously, I was scamming my way, getting free SoulCycle classes in New York City. So that tells you life in New York City is it's a hodgepodge of things. So yeah, this book was just delightful. I read it. I wish I could have listened to it. She does narrate. She does explain her breathing in the narration, because at the end of the stuff, she does explain she has a child. That's a plot twist. She also does talk about being child-free, coming up with the question of, do you want to have kids or you don't want to have kids? I think that's a question that our generation now has more than previous generations. I chose not to have kids. I'm actually grateful the parents didn't push me or pressure me to breed babies. I don't know. I may have kids later on in life at some other way, but I'm not, at least birthing children, I just don't want to. And I'm okay with that. I think it's like a coming to terms. And I really appreciate that chapter of like just explaining, just coming with those questions of like, what does it mean for you? What does it mean to your identity? What does it mean for who you want to be? And so it was a delightful book. I really enjoyed this. I actually will look forward to listening to it as a reread because it was just like poignant. It was like a best friend telling you her story. It reminded me of the voice notes I sent to my best friends throughout the day. And I'm like, that's the stream of consciousness. Like, here's what's going on with my life. I do a lot of those. And so I really loved it. So that's One in Millennial by Kate Kennedy. The next book is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jenna McCurdy. So actually, confession, I think I shared this earlier on, but I did not watch Nickelodeon. I watched Nickelodeon in the 90s, but not the aughts Nickelodeon, the golden age of Nickelodeon. And so I did not watch it, so I had no idea what iCarly was. I kind of like mentioned it, but I don't have nostalgia with it. So I had like no skin in the game. I was an MTV VH1, WB, CW kind of girly, but Nickelodeon was just not it. However, I picked this up because it was fascinating by the title. I was like, I'm glad my mom died. And I'm like, she must have a lot of trauma. And as someone who loves to read trauma sometimes and just enjoy, like not enjoy, but just to process my own trauma, I enjoy reading it and try to figure out like how does it relate to me or how does it doesn't. This book was like full of trigger warnings, full of difficult book to read, abuse, disorder eating, just kind of like what it means to be a child star in the aughts, disorder eating again. As someone who struggled with disorder eating, it was triggering as fuck. So yeah, check the trigger warnings. Note to does, a note to self. I know I talk fast. Jeanette talks fast too. So her book, I normally listen to books at 2.0 or 2.2 speed. I had to listen to this at 1.5 speed just to get to. But it's a really heartbreaking book to read. But I do encourage you, if you have a history of trauma, parental neglect, and parental abuse, then this book might be relatable or it might give you some healing too. And I wish Annette all the best. So, all right. The next one is a fiction book that I just finished this morning and I have to tell you all about it. And it's Love Letters to Serial Killer by Tasha Corio. I mentioned this book in another episode, but it's just so good. So this is only fiction, but it's a commentary of being a millennial. Like, really a satire of being a millennial. So basically, we start part one with an email job, a job at a nonprofit. You're supposed to like have purpose and love it, but you just hate the job. You just like, what the fuck am I doing? And you're quietly quitting, but really you're going to get fired. And so while she was quietly quitting, she found a forum, like as anyone does, is a Reddit forum about a serial killer that was on the loose at the time. And she's like fascinated with this guy because he's good looking. He's like not bad, So she's like starts sending him letters, like love letters, and they start talking to each other. And he rewrites her back. So when she gets fired, she's like, what else can I do? I'm just going to go to Georgia. She's in Minnesota. She drives down to Georgia and she actually goes to the trial. Like anyone does. It's like basically, hello, we like a couple years ago, we saw the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp card in the room. Like the lines were out the door. Like I watch YouTube court dramas. Like I do. If there's nothing on TV, then I'm just going to put a YouTube court drama and have a commentary about what is going on. So, yes, this is a very millennial book. So, the second part is a court drama, and the third part, I'm not going to tell you all about it, but it's so good. That is just like, holy crap. And the ending, oh, yes. Okay. So, that's Love Letters to a Serial Killer. If you want a fiction book, I listen to it in audio. It's delightful. Enjoy it and just have fun. All right, the next one we're going to talk is like, so we got a couple books here about TVs and movies. And the first one is So Fetched and Making of Mean Girls by Jennifer Catching Armstrong. So get in, losers. We're going shopping. Oh, this is the history of behind the scenes of this seminal teen movie that I can quote. Like, she doesn't even go here. I can quote in my sleep. I know this movie by heart. It is such a good movie. So before the movie came out, it's actually based on Queen Bees and Wannabes, which is a book. It's a nonfiction book that I did programming for. Back in the 2000s, early 2003, 2004, I was doing my internship at the University of Missouri, helping with Greek life. So, and we're going to talk about more Greek life a little bit. But I was helping with Greek life, and I was 22, 23 at the time. And I was like trying to figure out what it means to be a girl, what it means to be a girl in this age of like, bullying and queen bees and just want to be. I was never a queen bee. I was mostly like, best way I can describe it is I was a floater, but if I was not a floater, I was Gretchen Wiener. So I kept a lot of secrets. I identified with Gretchen as much as possible because I had a lot of I fed the information. I'm really good about gathering information, gathering the gossip, and just like keeping the secrets and like telling you what you need to know and be like, yeah, I know what's going on. So I'm the girl in a job and there's two people having a fight. I'll know what's both sides of the story. Like, I'll act like nothing happened. I'm like, oh, just tell me what's going on. And then the other person will be like, oh, just tell me what's going on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. That's a confession. Someone who loves gossip. But so Fetch and Making of Mean Girls is basically like a oral, like not an oral history, but just kind of like a behind the scenes look, like what it would look like behind the music. Back in the day for VH1, same idea. It tells you about Lindsay Lohan's rise and fame, Rachel McAdams, like what she does, the casting, what happened to the cast afterwards, the things that people talked about it. It does talk about the musical, which I did not get to see. I have not seen the new movie. I don't know. I love the canon text, the original movie so much. I'm like, I don't know if I can just watch a musical. I do like It's Not My Fault, but I don't think I can watch a perfect performance in my head to just do something else. So, but that's it. That's So Fetched and Making of Mean Girls, and I'm sick. All right, so the next one is Welcome to the OC, the Oral History by Alan Sepinwall, Josh Schwartz, and Stephanie Savage. This one's narrated by a multicast, and some of the cast members do narrate this one. So it's kind of like a fun thing. So watch this. You're in 2003. I just graduated college, and I'm just kind of like, I just moved to Maryland, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Dawson's Creek is almost over. I think Dawson's Creek ended the day that I graduated college. And so I'm just like, what am I going to do? And then Fox, like around my birthday, releases a show, this teen drama of this guy from the wrong side of the tracks who comes to live with this rich family in the OC. Oh my gosh. So that's the story of the OC. So this is an oral history. So we hear from like how the cast was casted. Fun story. If you were in the 2003, you probably watched Rich Girls, which was an MTV show about two rich girls, Tommy Hilfiger's daughter and another girl, who went to this like musical theater school. And on their prom scene, they show Misha Barton because she graduated with those girls. So she appears in that, and I was like, oh my gosh, the ultimate crossover. So it's Rich Girls was like, actually, I wish Paramount Plus bring it back because it's the reason why I moved to New York City. That's the reality TV show that I was like, I want to be a rich girl living in New York City. My New York City experience did not look like that, but it was just like really great dream to manifest. So Welcome to OC basically talks about from the casting to the pilot to the first season that was like never ending. It's like 28 episodes, but it went through like 10 lifetimes of episodes. Like they just like burn through stories and what happens to the show afterwards. One of the things that's unique about the OC that started is the music. And so you'll hear from the backstory about the different songs and how they incorporate music to it. And this is the era of Death Cab for Cutie, Weezer, Rooney. So it's just like this fun beachy side. And as many will know, the OC was the origin story of the Real Housewives of OC, Desperate Housewives. Actually, Laguna Beach, The Hills, a lot of shows came out from this original show. So this is a seminal topic. Stephanie Savage and Josh Schwartz and ended up making Gossip Girl, and they ended up making Heart of Dixie, which I love. Heart of Dixie, such a good show. If you're a romance reader, like small town romance, Heart of Dixie is the one you want to watch. I like it better than Virgin River. It's just so good. But those are the shows. So Welcome to DLC, The Oral History by Ellen Sepinwall, Josh Schwartz, and Stephanie Savage is a must listen to too. The next couple books are actually nonfiction, and they're topical nonfiction. So it sounds like a cult in the art of magical thinking by Amanda Montell. So these ones are things that we are fascinated as millennials. The best way I can describe it. So cults, commercial cults like MLMs, fitness cults, people like Nexium and all those different things. The Sounds Like a Cult is a great book to read and deep dive. One of the cults that I did follow in 2012 and part of my fitness journey, I'm going to tell you my fitness journey stories. So basically the fitness journey started because I had an eating disorder. So I joined 12 Step, which could be a cult. It's a very similar thing, similar vibes. And as I was going through my 2012 enlightenment, I was like reading all personal development books. And I remember reading Gabby Bernstein's first book, Add More Ink to Your Life. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally me. I'm going to add more shit to my life. So I basically and she mentioned Sati, and I had found at the same time, I was going to classes in Chelsea Studios, which is one of those rehearsal studios in New York City where Broadway stars and like actors and stuff rehearse studios. And they were like talking about this call into Sati workshop or something like that. And I was like, oh, like this is the same thing that she was telling about. So I signed up for the Sati workshop, and it was a Wednesday night class. It was like an hour and a half class. Basically, what we do is like an hour long of cardio into like intense cardio. We're just like dancing around and calling affirmations as we were dancing. It was like, I'm brave. What is meant for me cannot pass me, and all these different things. And then afterwards, we'll chat among the group. We'll do some journaling. We'll do some prompts. We'll do some like feeling good with endorphins. And I'm so grateful for my Sati community. I still talk to them. It's been 14 years, actually. It's been long. It's 14, 15 years I've been with this community. And I still talk to them. We are part of the gratitude list. I have friends who are like actors, coaches, private chefs. Like they're all over the place. And it's been such a wonderful community. But that Sati is actually mentioned in the book, which I was so happy about it. I was like, yes. And she actually does. It's a positive cult, but it's still a cult. It's a cult following and stuff. So Sounds Like a Cult was like delightful. The art of magical thinking is the other aspect of it, where how we think and how we process emotions and how we process ideas can get us in trouble. So it does talk about the sunk cost fallacy. It talks about manifestation and like new agey stuff, horoscopes, and like Mercury retrograde. And as someone who does practice magical thinking in many ways, I found it fascinating. I found it relatable, and I really enjoy it. And so anything that Amanda Montell writes, I am going to listen to it. I am so listening to it. I think she narrates both books, and it's just delightful. So it's like both books are like 6 or 7 hours. They're shorter books, and they're so good. So add those to the list. And then the final 2 books that I want to share are from Danny Pellegrino, who's another podcaster. So Danny actually does a broad recap or just like a regular reality recap. And Danny also was born in the late 1900s. So he was born in the mid 80s. And so he has a very like poignant book of like look at the nostalgia of the 80s and 90s. And he's also great to follow on Instagram. He has some highlights when he tried to eat some Twinkie Hostess cupcakes that were expired and so stuff. But he's delightful. And so these books are like just like this heartwarming Ohio family, and then this young boy going to LA to making it big. And it's just so much fun. So How Do I Remember This is the first book, and it's just regular scenes and regular things. And then the Joliet Bunch is a Christmas related book, which was just like holiday. As someone who likes the holidays now, I found it delightful. So both books are fun. They're like funny takes on the 90s odds, just what it feels like just to be a millennial in this world. So those are the Millennial books. I hope you enjoyed this fun episode. I figure we're going to try to do little different content, a little nonfiction every so often, because sometimes we just need to learn something, but really we just want to relate to what it's come to. And I hope you enjoy all my fitness tangent references. Note to self, I now do fitness. I'm now a Pilates girl. So I actually go to Pilates at least once a week because shit is expensive. So I go on ClassPass. If you ever want a ClassPass, I'll put the link to my ClassPass. If you live in a major city and want to save some money from Pilates, ClassPass is the way to go. And then I do go to barre. I go to Pure Barre now, which used to be my arch nemesis in New York City, but now that's the studio, and I really love Pure Barre now. So I go to Pure Barre. I do go to yoga. I do Yoga 6, do ClassPass again. I'm back at investing like a couple $100s in my fitness journey, but I'm enjoying it. It gets me out of the house. I find fitness to be a great place to make friends. If you're looking for make local friends, fitness classes are a great place to do it. And don't be surprised. I met one of my good local friends, by bursting a ball in the middle of the class. It turns out that she had the same issue. So it was not embarrassing. And so we started talking. We had a lot of things in common. So if you're looking for a local community, fitness classes are a great way to do it. So yeah. All right. I'll talk to you later. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the What to Read Next podcast. If you enjoy our bookish conversations and want more recommendations, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, head on over to the What to Read Next blog for a list of books mentioned in today's show. Happy reading!